can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Jason Wright of Wilde Brands, probably my favorite chips on the market of all time. And I'm not just saying that. I actually ran into Jason's brand at the CrossFit Games, and I was like, chicken chips. And we'll go into more about it, but it's like, wow, something healthy that I can eat throughout the day. That's perfect. That's right in my alley. Plus, I need protein. But before I formally introduce Jason and the background of the company, I just always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast, Jason. And speaking of chips, I had Cameron Healy on, who founded Kettle Chips. And he talks about his journey. Not an easy journey. You think, oh, they've made it. They're in all these stores. He talked about manufacturing issues and all sorts of issues. It was fascinating to hear how he grew it. And then also, I love to have my favorite snacks on the show. Leaving low-fat foods behind with Susie York. She's founder of Love Good Fats. So they're like a delicious, I guess, I don't know if you call it a snack bar, but it's delicious. It's chocolate, peanut butter. I had Mastering the Ancient Art of Kombucha with Holly Lyman. One of my favorite kombucha brands, Wilde Tonic. Amazing. And then one of my favorite stories, Jason, was I was at the Sweet and Snack Show doing interviews, and I interviewed James Cruikshank of Treating Cards. And he was 7. I think he was 7 at the time. I was so impressed with him and just what he was doing with Treating Cards. And it was like, he was trying to save up money for a gaming console. And after trying these candy cards, so it was like a card, it's TREETING that he'd give, but like there's a pack of like candy that was attached to the greeting card. And I thought it was really innovative. It was so cool to see a young entrepreneur at that age. So who knows where he's going to be when he's older. I think I looked at their site the other day. I think he's 16 now. So maybe that was like a while ago that I interviewed him. But just check those out and many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the full strategy, accountability, and the production execution behind the scenes. We call ourselves, Jason, kind of the magic elves that make everything happen and make it look easy for the host so they can just show up and talk. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire on this planet and share with the world what they're working on. That includes Wilde Brands and Wilde Chips. So I'm excited to introduce Jason Wright. He's the founder and CEO of Wilde's impossibly delicious high-protein chips. It's crafted from chicken breast. It's got egg whites and bone broth, super healthy. I was always trying to get my fill of protein every day, as my trainer says. So this is a perfect thing for me to have. He's on a mission to change the way we snack by proving that comfort foods, doesn't have to equal junk food. He's a seasoned executive. He's worked in this industry for a long time, actually, in general. And he's also a patent holder. So, Jason, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for having me. And what a great introduction. I really, I don't know if all that's true. I don't know if a seasoned vet is what I would call myself, but I am an entrepreneur who will not take no for an answer. And so I think that's how I got here today.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about what you've learned. I mean, you worked for Palm as a national sales manager. You worked for Yumnuts, Natural. I mean, you work for so many brands and help them grow. So now you're helping your own company grow. I kind of wanted to start, Jason, we'll talk about the idea, but talk about, first of all, the evolution of the flavor. So you could see, if you're watching the video, you could see we are looking at, my favorite personally is sea salt and vinegar. And we're seeing buffalo chicken, Himalayan pink salt, chicken and waffles. Talk about your favorites, but also like what do you start with? What was the original product and the evolution of the flavors?
When I created Wilde, we started with traditional potato chip flavors. So salt and vinegar and Himalayan pink salt were my first two products. As we started developing new concepts, we learned that if we take classic chicken dishes and try to use that as inspiration and then create a healthy snack based on that, chicken and waffle, based on buffalo, based on Nashville hot, that consumers really connected between our product crafted from chicken breast and the flavor that they could recognize on what, a classic chicken dish. So that really started to hit home with consumers. And that's what we do, as today. We take classic chicken dishes and we use that as inspiration, and we bring to life a very healthy snack that reminds you of that classic chicken dish.
So you started with the sea salt and vinegar, Himalayan pink salt. How do you decide how many more flavors? Because it seems, it's expensive, right? To launch a new flavor, how do you decide to launch a new flavor? Do you test it? How does that work?
Yeah, we start with, again, the classic chicken dish. So like internally, we're launching barbecue. That really is kind of a summer staple, barbecue, backyard, grilled chicken. And so that really was a flavor we felt like we needed. We had a lot of fans asking for that flavor. We also are working on new concepts. Spicy queso is one, again, something that you could imagine that would be on chicken. But to your point, it does get complicated when you have that many flavor profiles and you own your own manufacturing facility. And so it becomes complicated. How many flavors can you possibly manufacture in a week? And so, I think we're in a good spot right now. We have 6 unique flavors that all sell very well. We'll be adding maybe that 7th kind of towards the end of the year in spicy queso. I think that's where we kind of stop for a little while. We pause and we kind of, just stick to those 7 core items for a while. I do think that there's I always like to say the sky's the limit with Wilde, because we could think about around the world flavors, think about in other countries and you got, maybe a Korean barbecue, you just have so many options that you could do. So I think there's a lot of flavors that you could do with our product. But for right now, I think we're going to kind of pump the brakes at 7.
What are your favorites? You have some, I think, around you there. I don't know if you could hold it up.
So I'm a fan, chicken or buffalo has always been my favorite. It reminds you of a buffalo chicken wing. It also, I always tell people this is all the love of wing night minus your napkins. It truly reminds you of a buffalo wing. And then the one that's coming out and something I've worked on very hard is barbecue. I did not want this to taste like your traditional barbecue potato chip. So this really takes the grilling, the kind of smokiness, the peppery of like a backyard barbecue, and it really puts it into Wilde chips, barbecue protein chips. So I think we captured everything that you are going to do this summer when you break out the grill and you use your favorite barbecue sauce on chicken breast. And I'm excited for people to try it.
I want to talk about the first batch that you made versus the process to come out with the barbecue flavor. So take me back to the first batch.
I would love to reach out to the folks who tried the first batch and apologize, because this product had never been done before. And when you don't know what you don't know, you make mistakes, things happen. it takes time to figure out. It takes time to perfect it. And, it just, the first batches I can remember, the texture was not.
Was it in the kitchen or where were you?
It was in the kitchen. Yeah, I started in my apartment in Boulder, Colorado. I also worked with a local friend of mine who had a kitchen. He does a lot of work for other brands, for products, and he had a kitchen there in Boulder. And so we worked there to try to come up with what I call today the Wilde potato. So we had to take chicken breast, infuse it with egg white, bone broth. We had to figure out, how to create our version of a potato that if we were going to slice it like a potato chip. I was working with Colorado State University at the time. They have a great meat science program at Colorado State University. I was going up working with Professor Bob Delmore. And was just trying to figure out how would we do this product. The first time we made Wilde outside of our kitchen there in Boulder, we made the Wilde potato at Colorado State University. They have some equipment there that we were able to take advantage of and use, and then we shipped that down to a pork rind facility. And we went down to run it, and we basically made a huge mess. We shut down the facility due to all of our product kind of got captured within their fryers because we did not need fryers for this product. But in the early days, we thought we did. And so when we tested the product, we basically, all the product we put into the fryer married together and made one big, I don't know, for lack of better terms, massive Wilde chip, and it burned. And so, those early.
The equipment wasn't used to the type of texture ingredient that was going through.
Yeah, when you look at a pork rinds are rendered down. So they take the skin of a pig and they render it down, and they create what they call pellets, and so they actually fall like marbles. So the way that whole system is designed is for like a marble, we'll call it, that falls in, and then as the pork rind kind of puffs up, there's a top submerger that holds it down, makes sure that it's cooked, and then it basically exit out of the exit side of the fryer, and then it's seasoned. And for our product, you had to do something totally different, but at the time we didn't know that, so we were just testing.
Yeah, where did the idea come from?
I've always loved potato chips, and potato chips never loved me back. And as I got older, that really presented itself. And so at the bottom of a potato chip bag back in 2017, I had this kind of eureka moment, and this question popped in my head. And basically the question was, could I replace the potato with chicken breast? I wanted something that was healthier. I wanted something that did not lose the crunch. I wanted a classic potato chip crunch that was very important to me. I wanted to start with real food first. I did not want to achieve this by, taking protein powder and making a functional, nutritional product. I wanted to create a product that I felt good about eating, but I didn't lose the taste and texture of traditional potato chips. So that was where the idea sparked. And I'm a guy that once I get it on my head, I go down the rabbit hole, and there's really no turning back until I either figure it out. Really, it's till I figure it out. I just won't stop.
You have this never give up mentality. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your upbringing, because I imagine it has something to do with that.
Yeah, my upbringing, I'm from South Carolina, from a small town in South Carolina. I grew up, my mom and my dad split when I was very young. So my mom raised me. She worked third shift textile. And so I learned from her, what hard work meant. and I watched her, just never take days off and just work basically to put food on the table. And there was just a hard work ethic instilled in me since I was super young, and I just never forgot that. And then if I kind of take a step back, people ask me all the time, like, why take so much risk? And I think you have to realize where I came from. I didn't really have a lot to lose. It's not like I started midway or upper tier of the ladder. I kind of came from nothing, started from nothing. And so I was comfortable being at the bottom. And I always viewed life as there was only one way I could go, and that was up. So the risk factor wasn't really a problem for me because I was already comfortable living at the bottom.
In growing up, junior high, high school, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
It's funny because I always knew I wanted to own my own business, but I did not know what that looked like.
Why is that? Was there someone in town or someone that you were close with, or what was it?
I just viewed that as the ultimate kind of way of kind of controlling your own destiny. And I will tell you, right when I graduated high school, I started selling cars. I worked at a car dealership the summer between high school and going off to college. And I really thought that was going to be my calling. I thought early on that, maybe I was going to own dealerships. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting people. I enjoyed the sales side of it. I looked up to the owner of the car dealership, which was a GMC Pontiac Buick dealership. Anyway, and so that kind of, I guess, in the early days, I thought maybe I was going to be a car dealer. But as I got into college, started opening my eyes to other things. I went down the path of working for a clothing apparel company. And through that apparel company, I fell into modeling, believe it or not. And that got me out of South Carolina and into New York, where I spent 10 years. But in the early days of New York, and in modeling, that's when I became very conscious and obsessed of what I was putting in my body, and really realized that food made me feel certain ways, a better way than I'd been eating in the South. That led me to Whole Foods, discovering different types of products, and it just became my passion to eat healthy, which that's how I got into food. And once I got into that, I just never looked back. I knew at that point, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something in natural foods.
You were national sales manager at POM. Wonderful. And they have a slew of products. The one I think of is obviously the pomegranate juice in the container there. What did you learn from that experience that you brought to Wilde?
Yeah, so if I back up just a little bit, I want to tell you how I really got in the food industry, which led to POM. So in 2005, I started my own cereal company. So I launched a brand called FEED Granola in the city. And fast forward, we grew FEED to about a $2 million brand. We kind of got captured in that 2008, 2009 downturn of the economy. Really got to a point where we couldn't find funding for FEED. And in 2010, I closed down the business. So I learned a lot, but at the end of the day, didn't have a lot to show for it. I was at a point where I knew some folks who worked over at POM Wonderful Brands, and they were looking for someone to come in that really knew a lot about the natural channel. And I knew a lot about the natural channel. I had grown feed throughout the natural channel. I had met with, all the buyers as a founder, really understood that market. And so Palm was wanting to do some things special in the natural channel. So that's why I was hired at Palm to come in and not only run the natural channel for them, but also understand working closely with Whole Foods if there was some synergies on Palm doing some special stuff just for Whole Foods and for the natural channel. And so that's really what I was brought in to do there at Palm.
Do you think you were just ahead of your time with feed granola? Because
No.
we're talking 2005. I mean, today, obviously, there is a huge push towards, healthy stuff, a lot more healthy stuff than 2005, at least.
Yeah, so I'll sum it up, Jeremy. Bare Naked was there. They were about 2 years ahead of us. And, they outperformed Feed, they outperformed some other granola companies, and they eventually were acquired by Kellogg's in 2007, I think, November of 2007. And so what I learned after that acquisition was regionally, everyone has a granola. Every region has their own take on, is it soft bake, is it crunchy, even spicy down in the Southwest. And granola is something that you and I can create tonight in our kitchen. So the barrier to entry is super, super low. And it just got saturated. Like, when you started to look around after the Bare Naked acquisition, there's not, to my knowledge, there's not been another granola, a brand that starts just as a granola, stays as a granola, and exits. That has not happened since Bare Naked, to my knowledge. There's been other brands that, as a line extension, has said, "Hey, we're gonna go into granola just as a product extension to show brand can go in that category." But they didn't start with that category, and I think that's just to the fact that in today's world, people are looking for innovation, and then in the early days, you could redo a potato chip, you could redo a cookie, you could redo things that were traditionally just in conventional. But in today's world, like you see people coming out with whether it's a new fruit or something they've discovered in another country, or we're using fermentation, on certain products and things like Wilde chips that had never been done before. So I think today's competition is just so much more tough.
So the feed granola kind of led you to the next natural foods companies, and including the Yumnuts and then Palm. What did you learn at Palm from being the national sales manager that you take to Wilde?
Well, I'll tell you what I learned, and it was not on the sales side. The resident was very keen on vertically integrating their businesses. So when they would buy, for example, when they bought the farm with the pomegranates on it, they planted more pomegranates. They expanded their production, and then they built the facility to clean, package, or squeeze, turn into juice the pomegranates. So I learned then about vertically integrating from owning the farm to the facility to the brand. And I really took notion at that. And so when we started Wilde, I really set out from day one. I wanted to build my own manufacturing facility. In the early days, we worked with some co-manufacturers just because we were trying to get proof of concept before we went and built our own facility. But day one, I thought, how can I, really controlling your quality is all about being able, in my opinion, to control, from the raw ingredients coming in to the packaging, leaving, off to the distributor, off to the retailer.
Yeah. They own the supply chain. Were able to control quality. You mentioned barrier to entry, right? And because this had not been done, really, you decided, at what point did you decide we just need to create our own manufacturing facility? Because again, that's labor intensive, it's time, it's now something, it's kind of like, I don't know, renting versus buying, right? It's like the furnace breaks. Hey, you need to send someone over to fix the furnace as opposed to spending the money. If you own it, now you have to fix the furnace. So what was the decision to actually do it? And, how did that process work?
Yeah, so 2019, we raised capital, and one of the investors really encouraged the board and me that, hey, we believe we should look at building our own manufacturing facility. So in the early days, we were working with some co-manufacturers. We were doing what I call the Wilde potato in Chicago, and then we would freight to Virginia to crisp, season, and package. And as you can imagine, the economics were not pretty. But we used that to get proof of concept. And by 2019, we had enough of proof of concept that people around the table were encouraged and confident enough that they thought, let's go build our own manufacturing facility. So 2020, we discovered or found a site here right outside of Lexington, Kentucky. And we teamed up with Ron Tierney and his son Patrick Tierney, which are two real estate developers here in the great state of Kentucky. And we went to work, and we built a 50,000 square foot facility where on one side of the plant we bring in fresh chicken breast, just like you'd buy at Whole Foods, and bone broth and egg white. And on the other side of the facility, we are crisping, seasoning, and packaging product. And so that process took about 8 months to build. And I would tell you, if I hadn't have done that, I think where we're sitting today, I hate to even think about what it would look like, because I think none of us would want to see what it would look like today had we not made that decision then.
Jason, at the point now, it takes 8 months to build your own manufacturing facility. What was distribution like right before the manufacturing facility? Where were you across the country?
We were in Whole Foods, who was my first customer from day one. We were in the natural channel, so Sprouts, Fresh Market, Natural Grocers. We were selling Amazon, and we were selling on our own direct-to-consumer, our website. And outside of that, we were not really anywhere else. I had made the decision early that we were going to really prove the concept out before we tried to scale it. And I really just stuck to the natural industry. And we were nervous about, in the early days of working with co-manufacturers and having our equipment in there, we were nervous about production, controlling our own destiny. So we were not expanding until we built that facility.
That's a huge undertaking. I mean, you're managing the whole business, you're distributing, and I don't know how much it's got to be another 2 full-time jobs starting up this new manufacturing. How did you manage it all at that time?
I've got some great team members. I've got Philippe Barnoud, who was operations manager at Crave Jerky. He joined me in 2018, and he really took on a lot of the build out. I was there every day as well, and yes, it was a difficult time trying to run a brand, trying to run a project where we were building a manufacturing facility, trying to order special equipment. there was a lot of it just all kind of blends together. There was no like start stop, no days off. But we had to do what we had to do, and this was the really turning point of Wilde.
Talk about Whole Foods for a second, and first getting into Whole Foods.
Yeah, so day one, from my feed days, had some relationships there, and they were the first retailer on my radar. I worked with David Lafferty, who's a good friend of mine. I also worked with David McCormick and David Woods, the three Davids. And these guys believed in what I was doing. They supported me. The early days, we had a lot of out of stocks where we just could not produce the product needed. And a lot of retailers get upset, and I understand why. They do not want empty shelves. There were days when I thought I was going to get the phone call that David would say, Jay, we like what you're doing, but at the end of the day, you can't keep us supplied. And so when you figure it out, come back to us. But for right now, I need to take you off the shelf. And that day never came. David Lafferty stuck with me, supported me. He believed in the concept. It was unique. It's something that's never been done before. There really wasn't a replacement out there for it. And so he stuck by me. And I thank him, till this day, I when he and I get together, I'm like, man, you really, I would not be here without you, David.
That's pretty amazing. And then what is it like today working with Whole Foods?
Yeah, today is, very, very similar. Those guys still support me. If I have a new flavor launch, they'll always love to be the one that gets the flavor first. We've even toyed around with some unique, exclusivity or some concepts that we may do in the future. They are still one of the largest customers that I have. I really value their relationship, and I think I'm a big Whole Foods shopper myself. For the last 20 years. I've lived beside a Whole Foods. I lived beside a Whole Foods in New York, in Austin, in Boulder, and now in Nashville. And here in Lexington, I actually live beside the Whole Foods. So I don't know if it's just been something I sought out or a coincidence, but I go to Whole Foods probably 4 or 5 times a week, if not more, just to get small things. I've always been a big fan of what Whole Foods has done.
Well, one of the things I love, Jason, about your story is that, you hear all these overnight success after 10 years, right? So like you'd see, he started this, protein chip company of chicken breast, but really you've been doing this for probably over a decade at this point when you started Wilde, and, we're with the feed granola, grinding with sales, forming relationships. And now that paid off when you started Wilde, right? So I want to talk about attracting talent. You mentioned, I think his name was Fleet.
Yep.
I mean, seems like from what you describe, very, they could go anywhere, possibly. Like he could probably go to Kellogg. He could probably go to a large company that doesn't have startup issues or challenges. So what was it? How did you attract people like him on the Wilde journey?
With Philippe, so when I talk about the co-manufacturing, he was at that co-manufacturer for Crave, and Crave had recently sold to Hershey. And so Crave or Philippe was really looking for his next entrepreneurial experience. And so we connected. There was one hotel there in the little town where the co-manufacturer was at. we all stayed at this one hotel, and he and I connected. And I think he just really liked the concept. He thought that I had a big idea, and he knew of other brands out there, Crave being one of them, that was actively looking to do something like I was doing. And he had tried products, and when he tried mine, he thought that we were, further along than anyone he'd ever come across. And so he was wanting to join the team, to be a part of something that had never been done before. And so I think that was, a big attraction to him, was being a part of something that's never been done before. And I, even to this day, as we attract talent and we hire partners, I think there's a couple things. One that I look for is the entrepreneurial spirit and the grit spirit and the grittiness, and I've been very fortunate, even Mike Sin, who's my president. Mike Sin was a senior VP over at Kind Snacks. And Mike, if you really sit down, and have a conversation, you quickly learn Mike's an entrepreneur. Did he, maybe he didn't start a company like Bill Moses started Kavita, but Mike could have. And you start talking about these entrepreneurial spirits and this wittiness, this grit. And the one thing we all share in common is we like to do things that's never been done before. And we all have that never give up attitude. And we don't have a start time and a stop time. The passion is really moving the needle forward. And that requires, working all the time. But that lifestyle is not really work to us. We enjoy seeing things, progress. We enjoy seeing progress being made. And that's what's attracted or helped me hire a lot of our team members as we move forward. And I think the attraction on the opposite side is, here, let's be a part of something like Wilde that's never been done before.
Talk about some of the advisors.
Bill Moses is a huge advisor. Bill Moses started Kavita, was acquired by PepsiCo. I want to say 2017. Bill and I met at a trade show where he tried the Wilde chips for the first time and just really liked the product. He believed in the concept. He believed in me, and he was a huge advocate. He basically led me to Alan Karp, who is my largest investor over at Karp Riley. And without Bill, I don't know if Alan would have found me. But Bill really was a huge supporter, and he is to this day. He now has Flying Embers, which is a hard kombucha canned cocktail, and Bill and I probably talk 4 or 5 times a week. He's always giving me advice, and he's always telling people in his circle about me and about the awesome product we have at Wilde. So. He's a huge supporter, I have a laundry list. I wouldn't be here without a lot of support by a lot of smart people.
Ambassadors, right? So you make this chip, it's for you, but when you put it out in the world, certain people are attracted to it. So talk about some of the ambassadors out there who have really taken to it and spread the word.
So we really found a niche in the CrossFit community. Last year, Wilde was the official protein chip of CrossFit. So we went to the CrossFit Games August of last year, August 5th through the 7th. We had a big tent on the outside. We had at Vendor Village or at Vendor Row, and then inside at Vendor Village, we had a tent inside. That's where we met. We started to meet some of the CrossFit athletes. Sydney Wells, Brooke Wells, Tia Claire Toomey, and we formed relationships. They love the product. The girls are looking to get protein in their diet, but they want a snack. They can get protein from chicken breast and other meals, but they also just want a snack that they feel good about eating. And at Wilde, they feel good about, eating Wilde chips, and where they could get the taste, the texture of traditional potato chip, but yet they get 10 grams of protein per serving. So we brand ambassadors, Sydney Wells, we've worked with Tia, we've worked with Brooke, and we find that the CrossFit ambassadors, their audience is looking for similar products. And so that's been a great market for us. And then just overall fitness ambassadors, that's where we really, fitness foodie we call is our target demographic. And, that kind of brand ambassador and that community has really helped Wilde, as far as our awareness grow and to put us on the map.
Who else do you think would be a good ambassador? Or has reached moms?
When I look at kids with who love chips and crackers and cookies, we have chicken and waffle, which I believe chicken and waffle, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Kids love it. The waffle, the maple syrup has that sweetness to it. But from the mom side, they love giving their kids chips that has protein or has something more than just empty calories. And for kids, they have no precondition on comparison, right? They're discovering a lot of things for the first time. And so when they have Wilde, it's a win-win. They get the crunch that they want. They get the flavor they want. Moms feels good about the nutritional benefit of Wilde.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anyone else you call upon for advice in the industry when you're facing a decision that you have to make?
Yeah, Jerome Mativier, he's one that comes to mind. So Jerome is the CFO at Nature's Made. Jerome was the CFO of I'm drawing a blank on the Naked Juice. I don't know why I draw a blank there. But anyway, so Naked Juice, which is owned by PepsiCo or was owned by PepsiCo, he was the CFO there. He's been a friend of mine for 20 years, and he's a board member, and I call on him for advice. He's a well-seasoned vet in our industry, and I call on him for advice. I could go on and on. I call on my own team members for advice. Mike Sin, who's a senior VP at Kine and now the president of the Wilde. I call on him for advice, and there's just many more that I'm drawing a blank on. But there's a lot of folks out there that I call on for advice.
Talk about this. So I was on your site. If you're looking at the video, there's a bunch of ambassadors here. How did these people discover you?
We got into, whether it's the music industry, of us being now in Nashville, or it's just extreme sports. A lot of these people, Matt and Jake here, we discovered them. They wrote in and said, "Hey, we love your product." And they were just looking for some free product. And we partnered with them, and then we had them basically show the love of what their sport or their talent through music, and then how do they eat Wilde, or how do they enjoy Wilde while they are chasing their dreams and their passion. And so we wanted to highlight that. You'll see us this summer. We're going to highlight more of folks, ambassadors who have found Wilde, discovered Wilde, and integrated Wilde into their everyday lifestyle. And we want to fuel their passion as they follow their dream, just much like, that my dream was to create a protein chip that we could all feel good about eating. And we want to help people, on their quest to really, discover their dream or find their dream. We want to help fuel their passion.
Yeah. Jason, I have one last question. First of all, thanks for sharing your journey with Wilde Brands, and people can check it out at Whole Foods or local grocery store. Wilde Brands is WILDE brands.com to learn more. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on their website. I'm a huge fan. I'm a avid customer. So whenever I'm in a grocery store, I'm always looking for it. So thanks for what you do. I love the product and consume it weekly. Your favorite snacks? Last question. What are some of your favorite snacks that you like to consume?
Well, back to where I started. So if you look at my refrigerator to the right, there's 7 Faggi yogurts in there. And beside there, I've got whether it's RX Bars granola, Bakery on Main granola, Purely Elizabeth's granola. So I go back to my roots of how I got started. Like, I love snacking on yogurt and granola. I've always done that. I'm a simplist. I'm very simple as far as, and I'm a creature of habit. So when I get hooked on something, it's hard to turn me off of it. So really, yogurt and granola is my go-to snack. And Wilde chips. I mean, I do have the luxury of walking across the street here behind where I'm at and eating hot chips off the line. And I got to tell you, when you eat a hot chip off the line, it's almost like the Krispy Kreme donut hot signs on now. Once you have that experience, it's hard for you to go to the store to buy it, So I do eat Wilde chips every day. I'm a big fan of snacking on Wilde, and I'm a big fan of snacking on yogurt and granola.
And then I think that you were saying before we hit record about some kind of special ketchup that you like too.
Sir Kensington. So Scott, which is one of the founders of Sir Kensington, Scott Norton, he reached out to me during Expo this year. And, I've been a huge fan of Sir Kensington growing up in the Carolinas. I love ketchup. I put ketchup on everything. I discovered Sir Kensington probably 10 years ago, maybe. And just been a huge, I don't get kind of, I don't know if starstruck's the right word to say, but, I don't ooh and ah about someone who created a product that often. But when I met Scott, I was like, oh, this is a Sir Kensington guy. And, I have cases of Sir Kensington in my apartment. So fast forward, he and I have started talking. He's now at a fun Devonshire and out of Boston. And, there's potentially that we may form a partnership. So, I'm super excited about getting to know Scott and his team. And just the fact that, they created Sir Kensington and they had that experience of bringing a brand to market was a huge deal to me. So enjoying getting to know that, know Scott and his team over at Devonshire.
Jason, I'm the first one to thank you. Thanks for sharing your journey. Everyone check out wildebrands.com to learn more. And thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Jeremy, thank you so much, man, for all you do. It's been a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to having many more with you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.